Hey, it's Rick here, and in this video I'm going to answer a bunch of questions that you guys had about the AmpliFi Alien router. And I'm also at the end of the video going to give my overall opinions and verdict on it. I think most of that's going to be answered in the questions that you guys asked me. Now, I'm going to link in the description of this video as to where you can pick up the AmpliFi Alien, because as of the time of this video, at least filming it, you still can't walk into, let's say, a Best Buy and pick it up off of the shelf. I've only seen it maybe a couple of times on Amazon and then it was gone. So your best bet right now, if you really want to grab one of these, is going to be going on over to the AmpliFi web shop. Again, I'll link to it in the description down below, and you can pick one up there. Now, they do tend to go in and out of stock pretty quickly. Seems like this thing is really in high demand right now. So I try to keep up on that and let you guys know on my social media, usually on Twitter at metagamers, as to when these things come in stock, and you'll be able to pick one up when they do. By the way, if you do purchase one through the link in the description down below, that does help this channel. It's my affiliate link, so thank you for doing that. All right, so let's go ahead and go straight into the questions that you guys asked me, and then I'll wrap it up with my final verdict. Does it get hot? Now, while the router doesn't get hot, it does get warm, and compared to other routers that I've used in the past, this isn't concerning to me. I've had other routers that have done this as well. There's no fan inside of the router, so you're not going to hear any sort of a noise, and it's also important, like most routers, that you keep it in a reasonably well-ventilated area. I've got two of these connected for a mesh connection via an Ethernet cable for Ethernet backbone, and they're both in an open air environment. So in that scenario, they get a little bit warm, but nothing concerning. Is it faster? That's a tough one to answer, because I think this is going to really vary for different people in different environments. Now, to let you guys know, I subscribe to a gigabit up and down, and I was coming from the AmpliFi HD Gamers Edition system. And from a pure speed perspective, unless you have Wi-Fi 6 devices, I don't really think you're going to see a jump in speed performance. I did see very minimal speed increases, but again, it's not enough that I would say this router makes a difference for Wi-Fi 5 devices in the speed department. Where I do see an increase in speed, however, is when I have a bunch of devices all on the network at the same time doing bandwidth intensive things. So a couple of PS4 Pros online playing multiplayer, a PC online playing multiplayer, streaming Netflix or Disney Plus, and then all of my other devices, which can be anywhere between 20 to 35 on a given day, and depending on what's online. And in those scenarios, things seem more stable, and they do seem faster. And I think that might have to do with the fact that there's an updated chipset in this router. And I'm not referring to the Wi-Fi 6 chipset so much as I am in regards to the quad-core processor and whatnot. So it's a hard one to answer, but under certain circumstances, I think, yes, it is faster, but not in the traditional sense of what you would think. Not in the pure speed department. If you just say, hey, I had an old Wi-Fi router, and if I hopped on over to this one, am I going to see a massive bump in speed? Because I don't think that's necessarily true unless your old router was on its last legs. Will I see a difference if I don't have Wi-Fi 6 devices? Now, this one kind of ties in to the other question regarding the speed increase. And I would say you will, but not necessarily where you think you will. Let me explain. On my iPhone 11 Pro Max, that's the only device out of, like I say, maybe 25, 35 devices in my home that utilizes Wi-Fi 6. And so that one, I absolutely see a speed increase when I do a speed test, anywhere from 500 to 600 megabits down, and at times anywhere between 300 to 400 up. That's kind of crazy for a phone, and it's a bit of overkill, I would say. All of my other devices, however, have remained pretty static in their speed response. So depending on what it is, gaming console, or let's say a PC that's in a wireless connection mode. This one's wired behind me, but let's say a MacBook. Those are all getting good speeds, 300 to 400 megabit downloads. But it's not necessarily an improvement over what I was seeing on my AmpliFi HD Gamers Edition. Now, where I will see the performance increase here is in range. So some of my devices, when they were downstairs in my home, I live in a 2-story home, those devices would show at times a bar less strength than Wi-Fi signal strength. They would also sometimes hop onto the 2.4 gigahertz network. Well, under the new AmpliFi Alien router, I don't see that any longer. I see devices staying strong with their signal connection, and almost always they're staying on the 5 gigahertz network. One other example here is my Apple TV that I have downstairs. Performance-wise, before the jump to the Alien, it was fine. It would load up things on Netflix and whatnot. But it would sometimes, occasionally, take a few extra seconds to buffer and begin playback. Under the new AmpliFi Alien, it's almost instantaneous every single time. Should I upgrade my AmpliFi HD to this? Now, this is a bit tougher one to answer because I think it's going to be a little bit different for everyone. Now, again, I came from the AmpliFi HD and then the AmpliFi HD Gamers Edition, and all I can say is this. If you've got one of those two systems and you're considering jumping to the Alien, these are the questions I'd be asking. One, how many Wi-Fi 6 devices do you have? This is where you're going to see the biggest performance gains. I only have my iPhone that supports Wi-Fi 6, and I can tell you the speed difference is quite phenomenal, but it's kind of impractical. I don't really need that sort of speed on a phone. But if you've got other devices that leverage Wi-Fi 6, laptops and things like that, and who knows, maybe future gaming consoles at the end of the year with the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, maybe they'll support Wi-Fi 6, and if so, then you've just future-proofed yourself because you're going to get better range and speed with those devices. But if you don't, then you just need to look at it from the perspective of, do you want to buy into the future now and do a little bit of future-proofing so you don't have to purchase those devices later? Or you might also look at it like me, and that's to say, I kind of walked into this upgrading not fully knowing what the benefits were, but the pleasant surprise of knowing now I get greater range on Wi-Fi devices within my home. Example, my Apple TV that's downstairs that I mentioned. Also, better stability when a lot of devices are on the network doing bandwidth intensive things at the same time. So that's been my scenario and what I've seen. So I do think it's worth it, but you just have to consider your budget and if the timing is right. Are there bugs? And yeah, I don't mean insect bugs, we're talking software bugs. And as of the time of this video, there are no bugs that impact me and none that I am aware of. I will tell you, however, and you can go back in the description of this video and look at the videos that I have documented, there was a bug that prevented the mesh capabilities of this router from being stable. And that was a big deal for me. I picked this up back in December and I wasn't able to really use it until that bug got handled in a firmware release. Now, I will tell you, the support team at AmpliFi is phenomenal. They're very responsive. And even though that happened over a holiday period, Christmas and New Year's, they got a fix out within the first week of January. So they're really good about working with you as long as you reach out, supply support files, and do all that stuff, and they'll get you up and running. So at this time, no bugs that I'm aware of, and the ones that were there before have all been fixed through firmware updates. Do devices drop off the network? Okay, now this one I can only speak to my experience. And I'll caution you and say that anyone, whether it be through a video, through a written review, anyone that tells you a definitive answer on this, that's untruthful because everybody, I don't care who you are, we all have different devices, different manufacturers, and there is no one situation that is exactly the same where you can say no drops. There's just too many unknowns there. So I will tell you, in my scenario, I've only had one specific device drop off of my network. I'll get to that in a minute, and I'll tell you how I was able to resolve it. But to give you an idea, I'll consider my home a smart home. I've got a lot of different devices online, ranging from Philips Hue bulbs to thermostats made by Nest, to Nest cameras, to security systems, to Apple TVs, iPads, iPhones, Xboxes, PlayStations, Nintendo Switches. I mean, you name it. And they have all remained rock solid, with the exception of the PlayStation 4 Pro. Now, I've got a couple of them in the house, and they both had the same issue. So let me tell you what happened. The AmpliFi Alien has 3 Wi-Fi chipsets on it. It's got a Wi-Fi 6 5 gigahertz chip, a Wi-Fi 6 2.4 gigahertz chip, and a Wi-Fi 5 5 gigahertz chip. Now, the Wi-Fi 6 chipsets are backwards compatible. So in theory, they should work with everything, but that's only in theory. What I was running up against is my PlayStation 4 Pros would connect to the network, but then you might be in the middle of, let's say, a competitive round in Destiny 2, and boom, you're off. And that's a real drag, I gotta say. So that was happening at different times, and it was not consistent. So here's what I did to resolve the issue, because right away I thought there's a compatibility issue here. You can go into the PlayStation network settings, you can hit the options button on your Wi-Fi network, and you can force the PlayStation 4 Pro to connect to either the 5 gigahertz or the 2.4 gigahertz band. And so I switched it and said, only connect to the 2.4 gigahertz band, and now the problem is solved, no more issue. Now, some of you might say, yeah, but 5 gigahertz is faster. And while that's true, you also got to remember 2.4 distances are better than 5 gigahertz spectrum. And quite frankly, when I'm gaming online, I'm not seeing a difference between the 5 and the 2.4 at all. So, and now things are rock solid and stable. Now, the other way you can get around this issue is you can go into the AmpliFi Alien router and you can enable the backup 5 gigahertz channel, which uses the Wi-Fi 5 router chipset. Gets confusing. So basically in that scenario, you would have your Wi-Fi 6 chipset running for 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz, and then you would enable your additional 5 gigahertz under the Wi-Fi 5 chipset. You could call it a different name on your network, a different SSID, so you can single it out and have devices join that as well. So you could go either way, but I just like to keep it cleaner, and so I did it the way I explained. So that's my experience, and the only device that I've ever had a drop off on, and I was able to get around it. Well, since we're talking a little bit about the PlayStation 4 Pro, the next question is, how is it for gaming? Well, I'll let you know, in the room that I game in most of the time, this one right here that I'm filming in, all of my devices, with the exception of the Nintendo Switch, are connected via an Ethernet cable. That's always going to be your best, and so that's how I do it. And I will tell you, Ethernet connections on this thing, they're fantastic. There's no issue, plain and simple. I can do a speed test with an Ethernet cable, and I'm getting about 946 up and down. For all of the other devices in the other rooms that are Xbox, as well as PlayStation, as well as PC, and also Nintendo Switches, they're great. My kids mainly game on those in the other room, and whereas before I really wasn't hearing any complaints, I would occasionally hear, hey, I'm hitting some lag or this or that, and I hear that far less often now. I can't actually remember the last time I heard it. So for gaming, I think it's phenomenal. And you still, if you're coming from the AmpliFi HD Gamers Edition, you're still going to get the ability to go in and you can set each individual device to be optimized for streaming, for gaming, or just normal. What is the range? Is it better than the AmpliFi HD? This one is kind of tough for me to answer, because if you look at the back of the box on the AmpliFi Alien router that comes with the mesh point, it says for up to 21,000 square feet. However, the box for just the standalone router doesn't say anything. So it's kind of hard for me to answer this. I believe I saw 3,500 square feet for the router. But again, we'll have to do some searching online to see if we can get a definitive answer on that. With that being said, I will tell you the range is better than the AmpliFi HD Gamers Edition and the AmpliFi HD in my tests. Again, devices downstairs have a stronger signal and they're staying attached to the 5 gigahertz network much more often than they used to before. Should you buy 2 or more AmpliFi Alien routers or the AmpliFi Alien router that comes with a mesh point? Take a look in the description down below. I've got a video that speaks to this, but the short answer is if you want any option to mix and match Alien devices, add more to the mix, or if you ever have a problem in the future and you need to swap a device out, or you even need to sell one, then you're going to want to go with the standalone routers, because what you buy in that mesh kit, those are tied to each other. They're locked and they cannot be used independently. Does mesh on the Alien use its own dedicated backhaul channel? If you're comparing this to, let's say, the Orbi system, for those of you familiar with that, no, this does not use its own dedicated backhaul channel. You can specify which one of the Wi-Fi radios you want to use for it, but it's still going to be utilized for other things as well. Can you connect mesh over Ethernet? And the answer is yes, and actually that's how I'm doing it. I would actually recommend that if you can do it this way, that's the best way. And basically, as a refresher here, mesh means that if you are in a larger home or you're challenged with wall density and there's areas of your home that have dead spots or you don't get as strong a signal as you should, you can attach 2 or more of these routers together to expand your coverage. And if you do that with an Ethernet cable, then what that means is any devices that are connecting to that mesh point, it's like they're connecting directly to the router itself, because you don't have to worry about Wi-Fi interference, and you also don't have to worry about any speed drops, because now you've got 2 wireless hops. And what I mean by that is, imagine this: if you've got your main router here, you've got your Ethernet cable that connects to it, and your wireless device that is going to connect to that, that's 1 wireless hop. However, if you have 2 routers and you're not connecting them via an Ethernet cable, then what's happening is they're communicating wirelessly. Now your wireless device has to connect wirelessly, so you have 1 wireless hop to the mesh point, and the mesh point has a wireless hop back to the router. So the speed, you're still going to get good speeds, and I've tested this on wireless mesh, and where I was saying my iPhone 11 Pro Max can get up to 500-600 downloads, in that wireless mesh mode, it drops down to about 300. So it's still 3 to, I think I saw 400 occasionally as well. So it's still really, really good, but you will lose a little bit of speed in wireless mode. So yes to Ethernet backhaul, and I would absolutely recommend it. How's mesh on wired versus wireless? Well, I just kind of answered that question in the one right before this. Again, your best performance is going to be over Ethernet. So if you connect 2 or more of these Alien routers together, try to use an Ethernet cable. If you can't, still not going to be a problem. You'll just see a bit of a reduced speed. And it's hard for me to tell you definitively how much of a reduced speed, but again, using my iPhone as the example that utilizes Wi-Fi 6, on a wired connection to the router, it's getting about 600 download topping out. Wireless mesh point, you're looking at 300 to 400 megabits. How's support? This is an important one that a lot of people overlook. When you buy a router, unless you're a super tech guy or gal and really, really know what you're doing, and even if you do still know what you're doing, occasionally you're going to need to reach out to support. And the product is only good as the support that you're going to receive for it. And that's one of the reasons why Way back when I made the switch to the AmpliFi HD, the AmpliFi HD Gamers Edition, and now the Alien. The support from AmpliFi is phenomenal. They've got chat, they've got phone, they've got forums, and they are always super responsive. In my example, during the holiday, Christmas and New Year's, when a lot of companies go on shutdown, they were available and responding to me within the hour. So support is phenomenal, and it should always be a consideration when you're purchasing something as critical as a router to go inside of your home. Can the LED ring on the Alien be set to other colors? No, it's static in its color, but you can turn it off if you'd like. Can you turn off the touchscreen? Yes, you can. You can turn it off and you can dim it as well. Do you have to use the app to set up the AmpliFi Alien? Yes, you do. So you will have to download the app, and that's what you're going to use to set this up. It's also what you're going to use to do most of the features within the Alien. So when you want to go in and do a diagnosis, if you want to change settings and things like that. Now there is the ability to go into a web interface. There's only a few things that you can change there. Most of the features are going to be driven through the app itself. Does the Alien support QoS over Ethernet for gaming, or is it only on Wi-Fi? It's only on Wi-Fi at this time. Is the AmpliFi Alien router speed test more accurate? Now we're talking about the speed test that you can run directly from the router, and to answer that I would say absolutely. Now on the AmpliFi HD routers, in my experience, they were notoriously bad and inaccurate. Now with me subscribing to a gig up and down, these come much, much closer to reporting accurate speeds. Okay, so there you have it. A ton of your questions answered. If you still have more, leave them down below. I'll do my best to answer them in the comments when I can. But you can kind of draw a conclusion based on how I answered those questions, what I'm going to tell you for my final verdict. And that is this thing worth it? I absolutely feel it is. It just depends on when you need to purchase a router and why. So again, I'll go back to, you're going to see immediate benefits if you have a lot of Wi-Fi 6 devices. You're going to see immediate benefits if you've got a seriously old router, especially one that's been giving you fits for a while. The chipsets, not only Wi-Fi chipsets, but the processors and everything else within this are seriously upgraded. It's got some serious power under the hood, and it's been rock solid for me. So I'm not going heavy tech on this video. If you've got those questions, I can try to answer them down below, but just taking it from a normal everyday consumer's opinion, this is probably one of the best routers that I've owned to date, and I see myself sticking with it for the long haul. I don't see myself swapping it out anytime soon. So it's a winner in my book, definitely one you should consider and take a closer look at. I give it full thumbs up. So if you guys like the video, please give it a thumbs up as well. Don't forget to hit subscribe for even more content. I appreciate all of the views, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.